با اجازه شما من به انگلیسی صحبت میکنم. فارسی به خوبی انگلیسی نیست ولی خلاصه. Hello and thank you for joining us today in solidarity with the civil rights movement in Iran. You know, I am both humbled and emboldened being here today. I'm humbled by the presence of so many exemplary human rights activists. And I'm emboldened by the sheer force of will and the commitment to human rights I see before me. Thank you. Thank you for being here. It means so much. The first charter on human rights was authored by Cyrus the Great over 2,500 years ago. As Iranians, we are proud heirs to a tradition of human rights and tolerance. Sadly, the Iranian government has not lived up to this legacy, as can be seen by the mock trials, false imprisonments, torture, child executions, and lack of equality for women in Iran today. این قسمتش رو میتونم به فارسی هم بگم. نخستین بیانیه حقوق بشر در توسط بنیانگذار امپراتوری پارس کوروش بزرگ بیش از 2500 سال پیش در ایران تهیه شد و این خیلی مهمه که ما بدونیم که ما اولین بیانیه حقوق بشر رو به وجود بردیم و وظیفه ماه که حقوق بشر رو اداره کنیم تو دنیا نه فقط در ایران. The United Nations Declarations of Human Rights, proposed by Eleanor Roosevelt and adopted by the United Nations in 1948, established 30 articles of universal human rights. The document establishes and protects the framework for civilized and respectful interaction between all people and nations, no matter what their political, religious, or cultural beliefs. Over 190 nations have ratified this declaration, including Iran. And yet surveys show that more people can name 3 members of the Homer Simpson cartoon family than can name 3 of their basic human rights. You can't defend what you don't know. In celebration of International Human Rights Day, and given the current injustices we're seeing in Iran, in our homeland, it's more important than ever to remind ourselves of the goal of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. A world where justice and freedom is a global reality. The Declaration clearly articulates that there should be no torture, that all beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, that everyone has the right to a fair trial, that there should be no arbitrary detention, and that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and self-expression. Today's Arts United for Iran event is particularly important because artists often have a platform from which to speak and an audience eager to listen, so they can be effective vessels of communication with the aim of bringing about greater peace and tolerance in the world. I believe artists can be great advocates of human rights because we know all too well that individual freedom of self-expression needs to be protected. That's why I personally chose to be a human rights activist, and I'm honored to be a spokesperson for Amnesty International USA. I urge you all to visit the amnestyusa.org website and read Amnesty's latest report on the post-election crackdown in Iran, entitled Iran, Election Contested, Repression Compounded. I'd like to share some of the highlights from the report with you. The report covers the following: repression of freedom of expression, including clampdown on information, restrictions on journalists, and the shutting down of newspapers in Iran. Arbitrary arrests and detentions, use of torture, excessive force and killings by security agents and prison staff, abuse of the judicial system, show trials, use of confession extracted under duress, and the imposition of harsh sentences. The issue of impunity, failure to properly investigate and punish abuses, and actions to punish those reporting abuses. Finally, the report makes a number of recommendations, including inviting the UN Special Rapporteurs on Torture and on extrajudicial executions to participate in investigations of abuses, the freeing of all prisoners of conscience, review the cases of those sentenced after the unfair show trials and release those who have not yet been tried unless they are charged with recognizably criminal offenses and given a prompt and fair trial. At least 4,000 people were arrested across Iran after the elections. At the time of writing of the report, up to 200 remain in jail. Unfortunately, for the past 30 years, the Iranian government hasn't allowed Amnesty International into Iran. Today is not only about raising awareness on the travesties happening in Iran, it's also about bridging our differences through the freedom of self-expression, about demanding our human rights, and standing shoulder to shoulder in unity, united for Iran.